Hi there. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to execute your first Perl language program. So the first thing that I want you to do is go to perl.org, and here you can read about this programming language. Also, you get to download the version suitable for your system. Okay, so here you get options for Linux, Mac, and Windows. For Windows, you can see you have two options. One is Strawberry Perl, which I recommend, and there is another active state Perl. Okay, so the Strawberry Perl is the version on which we are going to develop our first program. Okay, so it's available on strawberrypearl.com, and you can download the version suitable for your system, 64-bit or 32-bit. I have downloaded this 64-bit on my Windows machine. Okay. Alternatively, you can also download this active states Perl version, but it will be on their updates instead of following the update from official Perl website. So if you want that, you can download through this active state website, and from there you can choose either installer for 64-bit or 32-bit. Okay, so the next thing after installing that on your computer, you can open command prompt, and here simply type in Perl and then space, then dash, and then V. Okay, and this should return the version that is installed on your system. In my case, it is Perl 5 version 26 from Strawberry Perl, this one. And it will also give you information about the license under which Perl is released. Okay, now I'm going to clear this and get into the drive here on command prompt. And now the next thing, I'm going to open Visual Studio Code as my IDE. You can open Notepad, Notepad++, or Eclipse, or any other IDE in which you can create Perl code. Now here, I have created sample.pl as my Perl file. Okay, so the sample.pl, this .pl format is going to tell you about this Perl code. Okay, so this .pl is very important while saving your file. Now here, I want you to type print, then space, and then double quotes. And here, let's type in hello. And typical hello world will have this hello world. Let me change this to hello Devnami YouTube. Okay, so this is my Devnami YouTube greetings. Okay, so I'm gonna end this statement with semicolon and then save this. Now this file is stored on D drive, and I can access command prompt from view and then terminal. Okay, you can use this, or you can simply go with classic command prompt. Okay, so let me clear this up. Okay, now here to execute your Perl code, what you need to do is simply type in Perl, then type in name of your file, and then this .pl format extension. Okay, now hit enter, and it returns with the message that we have in print and within this double quote. Okay, now if you can see this message, that means Perl is properly installed. And if you don't see this message, that means you need to take care of your Perl installation. Okay, I cannot show you how to go through the installer for each operating system because I have my limitations, but I'm using this on Windows 7. So the process for Windows 7 and Windows 10 would be pretty much same. Only difference would be on Linux and on Mac, where you have to go through respective installation process. And after that, you have to check whether Perl is installed or not on command prompt. You can do that simply by typing, let's say, Perl -v. If you can get version after running this command, that means Perl is installed. After that, you can create this sample.pl file and you can execute this code. Okay, so this was a short introduction on how to execute your first program in Perl language. Hi there. So in this video, we are going to take a look at variables in Perl language. So the first thing, make sure that you have Perl installed on your operating system. You can go through official Perl website, perl.org, and then go to download. Depending on your operating system, you can download the version that is suitable for your machine. Now, you can open a text editor or IDE that supports Perl language. Now here I'm using Visual Studio Code and I'm going to show you how to use variables. Now, first thing, create one file with name, let's say sample.pl. You can name demo.pl or anything else. Next thing after that is save that file with extension.pl. Now, after this, we are going to simply write one variable, and for that we make use of $sign. So every variable that you declare in Perl will have this $sign. So let me just add my age 33, and after declaring that, make sure to have semicolon. This will create variable name age and it will store value 33 into it. Now next thing, you create another variable name, let's say Devnami. Okay, now after that, make sure that you use semicolon again. Now here, in first case, you created one integer variable. In second case, you will notice that we have this text, so it will be your string variable. Okay, now next we will add one more variable and name it, let's say, salary. And here I want to set a package. Let's say I have a package of 5.2 and I want to assign that to the salary variable. Okay, again, I have used semicolon to end that variable. Okay, now I'm going to print each variable on console. So I'm going to use keyword print. Then let's say I'm going to use age, then colon. And after that, I'm simply going to use @ here symbol, dollar symbol, H. Okay, and also I'm going to use this /n so that we get our new output on next line. So we have age, then we have salary. Now at this $sign, $salary, then we use /n. Okay, then semicolon again, and we use print, and then let's say I'm going to use my name, colon. Now at this point, let's add $sign, name, and then /n. Okay, and again semicolon. Okay, so what we have done here is we assign age and given this variable $age, then salary, $salary, and name. Okay, If you are from background such as PHP, then you will notice that this dollar sign and then name of the variable is the way we do in PHP as well. If you're not aware of any other programming language, then you can just make use of this dollar symbol before your variable. Now save this file and open terminal. Make sure you go into the directory where you have this Perl file store. Now here, I'm going to type in command Perl, then name of my file, sample.pl. Now I'm going to hit enter and hoping that it should show me the output. And as you can see, it is showing me the age, which is integer variable, then salary, which is float, and then we have our text variable. Okay, or you can say string. So we have integer, float, and string all explained in this code. Okay, there are a few other things that you may come across as you start to use those variables. But these three basics are what we are going to use for most of your programs. So this was a short video on variables in Perl. I'm also going to take a look at some of the variables that you can use for Boolean operation and let's say for any other computation, etc. Okay, so this was a short video on variables in Perl. Hi there. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to use while loop in Perl. So make sure that you have downloaded and installed Perl on your operating system. Next thing, we need one text editor where we can write our code. And I have created this sample.pl file. Okay, so this file is where I'm going to write my while loop. Okay, so first thing, let's create one variable. Okay, let's name it Mr. A. Okay, so this is going to be our A that holds value of 10. Okay, now I want to check whether the value of variable A is less than 20 and I want to increment it until that point I want to run the loop. So I'm going to use keyword while and within bracket I'm going to use this variable A less than 20 as my condition. Okay, now inside this what I want to do is simply I want to output with print keyword and inside double quotes value of A, and here we're going to use this $sign A, then we're going to use slash n, and then finally semicolon. Now comes the part where I want to increment value of A with $A plus 1, okay, and semicolon. So what will happen is first value being 10 is less than 20, it will output 10, then it will increment with 1 and check back the condition, still less than 20, then go for printing that, then increment with 1 becomes 12, and loop goes on till it becomes 20, and it checks that it is not less than 20 anymore. Okay, so any value between that is going to run. Okay, so let's try to run this and find out how it works. Okay, so I have opened terminal and navigated to the directory where I have this sample.pl file. Now I'm going to type in Perl and then sample.pl. Okay, now this command will execute our for loop or while loop, and it will output this print statement and show the value of our variable A. Okay, so let me hit enter and it will show you that value of A starts from 10 up to 90. The moment it becomes 20, it will exit out of loop as it completes the condition. Okay, and till then it will show all the possible value of a that are being incremented. Okay, so this was a short demonstration on how you can use while loop for your Perl program. Hi there. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to use for loop in Perl programming language. So the first thing, make sure that you have Perl installed on your operating system. So if you have yet to install it, then you go through some of the earlier videos to find out how to check whether your system has Perl installed or not. Okay, so for Windows machine, it's simply opening up the command prompt and typing Perl space then dash v. Okay, so you can check that on Visual Studio Code as well. Here you just open terminal and here just type in Perl dash v, and it should show you this installed version and its respective number. Okay, so after that, and just create one file with extension .pl. In my case, it is sample.pl, and here I'm going to write for loop in Perl. So the first thing that we are going to write is we are going to type in keyword for, and inside the bracket, I'm going to write a variable named a and set its value to 10. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to count from 10 to 20, and I'm going to output each incremental value with the help of this loop. So value is 10 and it should be less than 20. Okay, and another condition is we have to increment it. So we have to just use +1. Okay, so what we do here is first we set the initial value, then we set the condition up to which we want this loop to run, and third condition is incrementing the loop. Now inside this loop we are going to use curly bracket for adding the code inside this loop. Here just type in print keyword, then type in value of a, then we use $a, then /n. Okay, and outside the double quote you use semicolon to end your statement. Now what this will do is it will first run this loop. It will check current value of a, it is 10. Then it will check the condition which is required for under 20 value. Then it will output the value of a, and loop codes by incrementing with this third condition. It will become 11. Then again it will check condition and print the value out. It will do up to the value of 19, and then when it becomes 20 it will exit out of this for loop. Okay, so let's open terminal and execute this to find out how it works. Okay, so make sure that you are navigating to the directory or drive where you have this sample.pl file stored. Now type in Perl and then sample.pl. So this is the file name inside which I am writing this code and will be used to execute here. So Perl and then sample.pl. Now after hitting enter, you will find that the output of value of a starts from 10 up to 19, and after that it exits like the way I have explained. So you can change these conditions and still able to make your way out of this. For example, you can make this 10, you can reduce the 20 to let's say 12, and loop will be a lot shorter. Okay, usually for loop is often used to execute a set of instruction up to certain conditions such as this is checked. Okay, so let's say if you have any particular log or error message to give and you have conditions such as this, then you can execute loop and explain the user that it won't be doing specific task until the value is raised or reduced to that point. So you know how to use for loop in Perl programming language. Hi there. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to create for each loop in Perl. So first thing, make sure that you have Perl installed on your machine. Depending on your operating system, the method for installation will vary. Now you can open a simple text editor or IDE. In my case, I'm using Visual Studio Code and I have created this sample.pl file. Okay, now here I'm going to create my first list. So in order to create a list, first thing you would do is use @ symbol and then let's say a list, and here I'm going to make it a list of numbers, so something like 2, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100 and 120. Okay, now end it with semicolon, and the next thing is I want to use for each loop to iterate through all these numbers within my list. Now we make use of for each keyword, then you use dollar symbol and then let's say a variable named a. So you create variable a with $a symbol. Now inside this bracket, you make use of @list and then curly brackets, and inside this simply use print and then within double quotes value of a, then $a, then /n. Now here make use of this semicolon to end the statement. Now what will happen is this for each loop will iterate through individual numbers and print them out for us, and after the end of this it will simply exit out of loop. So whenever you want to go through data structure where you have a list of items to iterate through, you can make use of for each loop. So here our case is with list and we are iterating through a list of items. So we are using for each loop for that. Okay, now let me open terminal. And here I'm going to call for Perl, then space sample.pl. Okay, you can also use your Windows command prompt if you want to execute through that, but for Visual Studio Code you already have access to terminal through view and then integrated terminal. Okay, so I'm making use of that. Now here simply hit enter and see the output, and as you can see it will iterate through all these numbers within the list, starting with 2, 20, 40, 60, 80 up to 120, and it will exit out of loop and return the prompt. So this was a simple demonstration of how to use for each loop in Perl programming language. Hi there. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to write do while loop in Perl programming language. I assume that you have downloaded Perl on your operating system and you have installed text editor or IDE that supports Perl. Okay, you can use Visual Studio Code or Notepad++ or any other IDE that supports Perl. So I have here created sample.pl, and here I'm going to write my do while loop. So when you're writing do while loop, you don't have to specify the variable in advance. Okay, you can directly start with your code and mention the variable within that loop, or you can do it before Okay, so let's say I have created this variable a with value of 10. You can mention this inside the loop as well. So let's say I want to have a condition. So for that, I've written do and then bracket is curly bracket, and then after that curly bracket ends, we use while keyword. So this is do, and we will execute the code that we want to repeat, and we are going to use while keyword where we want the condition to be set. So we have specified variable a to be 10. So let's say variable a is less than 25. Okay, and we want the loop to run up to that point. Now the loop would be this print statement, and here I want the value of a to be mentioned up to 25. Okay, then semicolon, and then I'm going to increment the value of a with 1. Okay, now go to your terminal, and here you have to navigate to the directory where you have your sample.pl stored. Okay, now here I'm going to write Perl, the name of the file, .pl. After hitting the enter, it should show me the output within our do while loop. Okay, as you can see, it starts from value of 10 up to 24. The moment it hits the condition, variable being less than 25, when it actually becomes 25, it stops the execution within this loop. So any loop that you want to run will be inside this do keyword, and while will decide the criteria for which this loop runs. So this was do while loop in Perl programming language. Hi there. So in this video, we're going to take a look at array variables. So first thing, make sure that you have Perl installed on your operating system. And after that, make sure that you have one text editor or IDE where you can create your Perl files. I have created sample.pl as my Perl file. And here I'm going to start by creating my first array. Now to create an array, we are going to use this @ symbol. And after that, we can write the name of our array. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to write is the age of, let's say, pets. I'm going to use equal to sign, and within this bracket, I'm going to add age of pet, say 2, 4, and 5. Okay, now let's also add our pet species type. So we will create another array, name it pets equals sign, and inside that we will have this cat as first string within our array. Second, we have dog, and third, let's say bird. So we have 3 different pets and their age in another array. So we have 2 array. One is integer array and second is our string array. Okay, now to output the content from our array, we can start from 0th position. Let's say this is 0, 1, and 2. Now for printing it out, you can make use of double quotes, then slash, and then let's say $sign. And here we are going to take first element from our array, then /9, and then semicolon. So I'm going to use all 3 of them here. So 1 and 2. Similarly, we can also print out our second array, use slash and then $, and here pets, and then we can use zero position /n, okay, and then our semicolon. Now we can repeat this, okay, so for first and then second. Okay, this slash is added for our single element from array. Okay, so what we're going to do here now is open our terminal. Okay, and you have to navigate to the directory where you have this sample.pl file store. Now then simply type in Perl and then sample.pl. Okay, now after executing this code, it should show you the value of your first array with 2, then 4, and then 5. Same with your another array pets, which has value cat, dog, and bird. Now you can see that I have added some space after this / and also use this /n so that our output goes to the next line. So we have our first integer array and then our string array here that contains string values. Okay, so this was a short video on how to create array and how to output its variables from its 0th index position onwards. Hi there, so in this video I'm going to show you how to use hash variables in Perl. So the first thing, make sure that you have Perl installed on your system, and then make sure that you have some IDE or text editor where you can write the code. Now in my case, I'm using Visual Studio Code and I have created this sample.pl file. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my first hash variable. So for that I use %sign and let's say I name it data. Now then I'm going to use equal to sign and then bracket, and inside that I'm going to drop my key and value pair. So let's say I have key 1 that has a value of 11, then we have key 2 and value of say 22, and then key 3 and then value of 30. Now make sure that you have used semicolon at the end, and then we are going to print key value pair here. So let's start with our print keyword, and then we will use, let's say, / and then we will call for our individual elements from hash using $, as showing that it is like our variable. So we use key1 within single quote, okay, then /n, and finally semicolon to end that. Okay, so what we did here, created a variable that points to this hash value and where the key 1 will have its pair value of 11. Okay, now similarly we can repeat this for other two. Okay, simply change this to 2 and 3. Okay, so you can guess you have your values from your hash variable key1, key2, key3, and it should show you as 11, 22, and 33. Now open terminal, and here make sure you are in same directory to that of your sample.pl file. Now here type in Perl and then sample.pl. Now here make sure that you hit enter and you get value 11, 22, 33. If you're getting this, that means your program compiled successfully and you have managed to access your hash variable named data, and you have successfully individually processed key and value pairs from your hash variable. Okay, so this was a short video on how to work with hash variable in Perl. Hi there. So in this video, we're going to take a look at functions or subroutines in Perl programming language. So make sure that you have Perl installed on your operating system. You can go through respective installation process for your operating system. And to run the code, you can install some IDE or even Notepad would do. Okay, in my case, I'm using Visual Studio Code and I have created this sample.pl file inside which I'm going to write the code. Now, first thing is creating a simple function or a simple subroutine. So let's say we make use of keyword sub for defining our subroutine. Now, let's name our function or subroutine as sample. Okay, then we use curly bracket, and inside this we will have our code. Now here I'm going to print Devnami YouTube. Okay, so this will be printed every time we are going to call this subroutine. Now to call subroutine, simply use name of that subroutine and then these brackets, and that's it, semicolon. Now every time you call your subroutine, it will print the message inside it. Okay, you can check this out. So on terminal, then navigate to the directory where you have this file stored. Then type in Perl, then space, then sample.pl. And as you can see, it shows you the statement that I added within the subroutine. Okay, now there is one more type of subroutine that you may want to learn how to use and create. Now here, you can send some parameters through your function and you process those parameters inside your function. So let's say I pass on number 2 and number 5, and I want multiplication or addition of these. Now, to accept those parameters, what we do is we simply make use of $, then underscore, and then we use square brackets and use 0 as first parameter variable. Then you can use plus symbol for addition, or you can use, let's say, minus symbol subtraction, or even star operator for multiplication. I'm going to do the addition just for the sake of simplicity. Then use $, then underscore, and within square bracket use 1. Now end this with semicolon, and what you will have is when you call this function, it will print out 7 as output. Okay, so let's try to find out how that works. Okay, simply type in Perl, then sample.pl, and here you see 7 value is written. So what we have seen so far is creating a subroutine or function that doesn't take parameters and how to call that. Then also we check how to create parameterized subroutine or function and how to call that and how to access parameterized elements within your function or subroutine. So this was a short demo on how to use function or subroutine in Perl programming language. Hi there. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to make use of hashes in Perl. So to clear the concept of hashes, I can put it simply like think of hash as a data structure that holds key and value. So for every key that you input in there, there is going to be associated value with it. So it comes in a block of key value pair. Okay, you can have the biggest hash you want with key and value associated with it. Okay, so we are going to take a look at that. Be sure to check whether you have Perl properly installed on a system. And after that, create one file with extension .pl. In my case, I have created sample.pl. And as you can see here, I have opened it in Visual Studio Code. Now, first thing I'm going to do is create a hash. I'm going to use percentage data sign and then use equals to, and within bracket, I'm going to use my first key. Let's name it Joe. And then I'm going to use a number. Let's say his age is 40. Next thing, I'm going to use name Jane as another key and her age 32. Now, next thing, let's add one more key, name it Jack, then add value. Let's say 23. Okay, you can keep going on and on. This is your simplest hash that you can make in Perl. Now, there are many ways you can print key value pair from this hash. Simplest way is, let's say, this print, then you call for $sign data, and inside this you are simply going to call for the key whose value you want to print out. Use slash in so that it goes on another line. Okay, now open your terminal. Here type in Perl and then sample.pl. Okay, and then hit enter and it should show you error. The reason behind that is because you will find that your program has this semicolon missing. Okay, as you can see, it is going to show you syntax error. Now, after fixing that, you can run the code again. And you will find that you have value 40 given when you pass on this key. Let's say we change this to chain. And now new value will be printed. It gives you 32. Okay. Now there's one more method where we can separate our key and value. So let's separate it out with, let's say, names. And here we make use of keys from %data. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to do here is I want to print only these keys. So I'm going to use $sign, then names, and first key will be, let's say, 0. Okay, and then slash it. Okay, you can copy this for more than one values within your hash. Just change this to 1 and then 2. Okay, make sure that you don't have any syntax error like missing semicolon or something. Okay, so simply type in Perl sample.pl. And here you have your Jack, Jane, and Joe. Okay, so you get the idea of how to get the key and value out of your hash. Okay, you may notice that your cursor starts from the last key here. Instead of showing Joe, it showed you Jack. Okay, so keeping that part in mind, we will now let's print our value. Okay, so let's say for my values, let's name that ages. And here I'm going to say values and then percentage data. Okay, and here I'm going to simply use this $sign and ages, and then let's start naming it from 0. Okay, now let's repeat this. Okay, change this to 1, 2. Okay, now let's try to print this out and see what happens. And here you'll find it prints from 40, 32, and 23. Okay, so the missing part that you will notice here is that first this age is taken for 40, then it goes to directly to 23, and then this goes for 32. So you may not find the correct order in which these are printed out. Okay, and why this is so, we will take a look at in another video where we are going to check how the exact hash key value pair data structure works in Perl. So for now, I showed you how to make use of hashes, how to add data, and how to retrieve it back. So this was a short video on Perl hashes. Hi there. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to use if-else statement in Perl programming language. I assume that you have Perl installed, and if not, then simply check if your command prompt shows installation of Perl. Simply type in perl-v. If Perl is installed, then it will throw you this message of which version is installed. If not, then go to perl.org and then select the download for specific operating system, and then you will run this command again, perl then space then -v, and find out if it is properly installed. Now let's come back to the point of if-else statement. Now there are conditions in programming when we have to choose in between values. We have to test whether one value is greater or smaller than one another, and based on that we make decision for our code. So let's take a look at this problem here. Let's say I have one variable with number stored, let's say 100, and we're going to check whether that number is bigger or smaller than another random number, let's say. So first thing, create one file in text editor and save it with extension .pl. So I have sample.pl, and here I'm creating one variable, so $a equals to 100. Okay, next thing that we are going to do is going to have a keyword named if, and then bracket. Inside that, I'm going to check our variable a is greater than 20 or not. Okay, or you can also go for, let's say, less than 20. Okay, if this condition is true, then we will print message a is less than 20. Make sure that you use semicolon at the end. Now we already know that value of a is 100 and it's bigger than 20. So we need to have one else condition. So we use this keyword else. And inside curly bracket, we use print, and then within double quotes, a is greater than 20. End it with semicolon. Now at the end, we will simply print value of a. So value of a is this $a, and then use /n. Okay, so that it goes on to new line when you run the code. Now open command prompt. Okay, now here I'm going to navigate to the directory where my sample.pl file is stored, and here I'm going to type in perl, then name of my file .pl. That's enough to run your code. Okay, and here you see a is greater than 20 and value of a is 100. So I need to add this slash in here so that it can go on next line. So let's compile it again. Okay, so a is greater than 20 and value of a is 100. So as you can see, we can check condition for greater, smaller, equal, not equal in our if else statement. So you can also have more cascading conditions such as if else, else, etc. Okay, so this was just basic example of how to use if else statement in Perl. Hi there. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to create a directory in Perl programming language. Here, regardless of your operating system, this code will work on Windows, Linux, and Mac. Okay. So first thing, download text editors such as Notepad++ or let's say Visual Studio Code, and also make sure that you have Perl installed. Now, I have created one sample file and saved with .pl extension. Now here, I'm going to use this $var sign, and here I'm going to give it a path where I want to create the directory. Now, let's say I'm on a D drive, and here I want to create the directory and name it, let's say, Perl Magic. Okay, so this will be the name of our directory. And next thing is making use of mkdir keyword, inside which I'm going to use dir keyword, and then I'm going to use or keyword, and then die. Okay, so for die we will simply point out error. Okay, and if there is no error, then it should print out directory created. So let's go through the flow of this program. So first line says you want to create this Perl Magic directory on this drive. So in D drive, you have sample.pl. This is where the directory will be created. If you want some other place, let's say you have a directory named demo on D drive or C drive, and inside which you want to create this Perl Magic directory, you can do so. Okay. Next, you will use this make directory function or subroutine that will take your path directory variable. Okay, so that will create your directory when this subroutine is executed. If it fails, then it will throw error. If it doesn't fail, then it will come to this print statement. Now let's open terminal, and I'm on D drive, as you can see on this terminal. Now here, I'm going to type in keyword perl sample.pl, and it says directory created. Now let's open our Explorer and find out that directory. And as you can see, Perl Magic is created on D drive. Okay, again, remove it in another program. Okay, so you get the idea that in order to create a directory, you make use of subroutine mkdir and pass on the path and the name of the directory which you want to create. Okay, so this was a short video on how to create a directory using Perl programming language. Hi there. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to remove a directory from file system using Perl programming language. So the first thing I want you to do is make sure that Perl is properly installed, and also you have text editors such as Notepad++ or Visual Studio Code. Now, here I have created sample.pl file within which I'm going to write the code. Now, before that, take a look at this Perl Magic directory. It is empty directory, but I created with Perl in earlier video. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this directory from D drive. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to first thing what we're going to do is we will create this directory variable where we are going to show the path to Perl Magic directory. So this sample.pl file is stored on the drive. This is where our directory also exists. So we can simply reference it with slash the name of the directory. In your case, this could be different. So next thing, we are going to use rmdir as keyword, and then we will call that as subroutine or function, and then pass on this $dir, and then use or die. And here we will simply type in error, and on next line we will type in print and then directory removed. Okay, save this. Now the flow of the program will be, first thing, our this variable directory will contain path to the directory which we want removed. So our script is running from D drive where we have Perl Magic directory. So we have used slash and then name of directory. In your case, the path would be different. Now we have rmdir function, which will take this path and remove the directory. If it fails to do that, it will throw error using this die keyword. And then program will exit if there is an error. If there is no error and directory is removed, then we get the message directory removed. Okay, so let's open this. Now let's go to the D drive, and here I'm going to type in Perl, then sample.pl as my file path. Now here I'm going to hit enter, and you will find directory removed as a message. Now let's open our B drive here, and you can see that there is no Perl Magic directory. It is now removed, and it is refreshed as well. Okay, so in this example, we just checked how to remove a directory from, let's say, top of the tree, or within. You can also go with more complex folders. Okay, for example, slash Perl Magic, slash Perl, etc., etc. Okay, so depending on that path, you'll be able to remove that directory. Okay, so hope you like this video. Hi there. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to create text file using Perl programming language. So make sure that you have Perl installed on your operating system. Also make sure that you have text editor or IDE that supports creation of Perl file. Now here I have Visual Studio Code, and I have created sample.pl file, and here I'm going to write my code. Now the flow of my code is going to be something like this. I'm going to open file, and in this process I'll be also creating that file, and then I'm going to write some content on it, and then I'm going to close that file. Then you can open file manager of your operating system and navigate to that file and check whether this is readable or not. Okay, so first thing, you make use of this open subroutine, and here we make use of this fh as file handler. Now here I'm going to create this file named, let's say, Nami Perl.txt. Okay, now outside this subroutine, I'm going to use this error so that it will cause this error to appear if our file is not created. Also note that we have to use this file in write mode because we are going to write some content. So we use these double greater than operators. Okay, so in print, we will point out the file, and let's say this file is generated by Perl. Okay, now next thing, semicolon, and finally close, and then give your file handle. Okay, so this fh is my file, and it is stored with name Devnami Perl.txt on the same drive where my sample.pl is stored. In my case, it is on a D drive. Okay, now let's open terminal, navigate to the directory, and now let's execute perl sample.pl. And as you can see, it returns with blank prompt. That means the file is created. Now let's open my computer, and here let's check out this devnami perl.txt. Okay, so here it is, devnami perl.txt. Let's open it, and it shows this file is generated by Perl. So you can see that we used open command to open a file, and here we are creating the file by opening it in write mode, and we are also calling for error just in case if this file is failed to create. Okay, then we are writing some text on that file and finally closing the file. Okay, so this was a short demo on how to create a text file in Perl programming language. Hi there. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to delete a text file if it exists on your operating system's hard disk. And for this, we are going to make use of Perl programming language. So make sure that you have Perl installed, and also make sure that you have some text editor or IDE where you can create a Perl file. Okay, so the first thing, create sample.pl file, and here I'm going to write my code. So let's first start with our my keyword. This is going to point to our file. So let's say I use variable $files and point to my devnami perl.txt file. This file is there in my D drive, same drive where I have this sample.pl. Okay, now next thing, semicolon, and then we're going to use unlink and then call files. Now using unlinks will remove the instance of that file from your hard disk. Now, how can we verify that? For that, let's take a look at this condition if, and then dash e, and then $files. Here we are checking whether that file instance is there on hard disk. If it is, then print file is not deleted yet. Okay, now in else part, we are going to print file is deleted. Okay, so what happens is first we are pointing to this files variable with our file path, and then we are using unlink keyword to remove that file from disk. So my is for the reference to that file path, and unlink for removing that from the disk. To verify if our process works, what we do is we simply use this if else condition and print those stuff out. Okay, so this was a short demonstration, and for this, let's check out in terminal. So you open this and prompt inside your Visual Studio Code. I'm going to switch to D drive, and here I'm going to use this Perl and then sample.pl. Now, if I execute this code, it should show me either file is not deleted yet or file is deleted message. Okay, now if it says file is deleted, then we can check our hard disk, and as you can see, the devnami perl file is deleted. Okay, now if the file is already removed and if we try to execute this, then it will still say file is deleted. Okay, and if it still exists there, then it will try to remove it and then come back to the file deletion part. Okay, so this was a short demonstration on how to delete a file from hard disk using Perl programming language. Hi there. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to open text file in Perl programming language. So I assume that you have Perl installed on your operating system and also have some text editor or IDE where you can write the code explained in the video. Okay. So in my case, I'm using this Visual Studio Code, and you can use Notepad++ or any other IDE that lets you use it for Perl. Okay, now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open one text file from my D drive. Okay, so here I have this demo1 as my text document. Let's open this. Okay, and it says this is the text document to be opened by any programming language you like. So we're going to read this and print it out on command prompt. Okay, so the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to type in keyword open. Now here you need one data variable and another is the path to your file. In my case, I have my file on same drive to that of this Perl file. So use less than symbol for reading the file, then use demo1.txt directly. Okay. If you have any path to directory, then you can use this /. Okay. In my case, there is no such thing, so I'm directly coming out of this subroutine and then use or die and then error. At the end, semicolon. Now we are going to use while keyword and going to try our data to be read, and then we will simply print our content from text file. Okay, and don't forget use semicolon at the end of print statement. Okay, now once you do all this, save your file. Okay, then open command prompt. In my case, I'm opening this directly from Visual Studio Code. Okay, going to the drive, and here I'm going to type in Perl and then sample.pl. This is the name of my Perl file. In your case, you have to use that name of your Perl file. Okay, now after hitting enter, it should read the sentence that is stored within demo1.txt. Okay, and as you can see, it reads, this is a text document to be opened by any programming language you like. This is the same as we can see it right here. So now it is reading our text file the way we want. So this was a short demo on how to open a text file and how to print out the content from it on command prompt. Hi there. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to create an Excel spreadsheet with Perl programming language. So for this, we are going to make use of Excel class here. So the first thing, you have to get an IDE or text editor and create one sample.pl Perl file. Okay. Now the next thing, we will use strict so that we don't cause any errors. Then use warnings so that we get the idea of where things go wrong on file handling level. Then we will use Excel, then writer because we are writing the file, then XLSX. Okay, so we are writing Excel file which can be readable from version 2007 onwards. Now we will use my keyword and then we will create one workbook. Okay, then for this we will call Excel writer XLSX. Then we will create new file. Okay, here let's say my channel name Devnami YouTube dot xlsx. Okay, now next thing my and then worksheet. Okay, then next thing we will give it our workbook object and add that worksheet. So add underscore worksheet. Okay, so after that we will write on our worksheet. So we will make use of worksheet and we will call for write method, and we are going to write on say our first cell, which is A1. Okay, and here I'm going to type in username as first column. Then we will make use of another write query. Here I'm going to use A2, and here I'm going to call for Devnami YouTube as my username. Okay, the next thing I'm going to call for worksheet and then close. Okay, so what we did here is we call for Excel class and access Excel SX file classes for. So from there we created new Excel file, then added worksheet to it, and then using the write method we are writing to the columns, and finally we are closing the sheet. Okay, now let's open terminal, and here I'm going to execute this code. So perl sample.pl. So this Devnami YouTube.xls file will be stored on same directory from where this sample.pl file is running. In my case, that is D drive where it is stored. So the file will be created on that drive. So let me execute. It will show errors if there are any compilation issues. So it says 4 point where it shows that error. Okay, so it shows error on the point of Excel writer. Okay, so it shows compilation use Excel. Okay, so the error is use Excel part where I didn't mention colon twice. Okay, so we'll get that out of the way and we will try to run it again. Okay, so it shows another error which is worksheet close, which should be workbook close because we are closing entire file, so it should be workbook. Okay, so that's another error. So we managed to find 2 errors so far and corrected them, and our file is now properly created. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so I'm opening the drive and here I have Devnami YouTube Excel file. So once open, it should contain the same data as we have right here. And there you see we have username in one column and Devnami YouTube on second column. Okay, so you get the idea of how to read the content and how to write that on your worksheet, and finally how to close that file. Okay, so the only error that we had here was with this extra colon that we are supposed to add, and also we are closing workbook and not worksheet. Okay, these 2 errors that you may often come across while writing the code. So these are pretty major errors, so yeah, do take a look at that. So this was a short tutorial on how to create an Excel spreadsheet using Perl programming language. Hi there. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to display all the content within directory using Perl programming language. Now make sure that you have Perl installed on your operating system and you can execute simple Perl scripts. Okay. Also, you need IDE or text editor where you can write your Perl code. Now, in my case, I'm using this Visual Studio Code and I have created this sample.pl file. Now, let's start by creating our script that reads all the content within directory. Now, let's start by creating a variable. Let's name it directory. Okay, and it will take the path where you're going to execute this script. So in my case, I'm going to run this script on a D drive. So I'm going to use just slash so that it can read from same directory. Now I'm going to use star operator so that it can read all the files necessary. If you use star dot html, then it will list that file format. JPG, then it will list that file format. If you don't specify, it should show you the files within your directory as is without discriminating between the file extension. Now, next thing, let's say I have this keyword my and then @files, and I'm going to use this global subroutine to take the path. So once you take the path, then you'll be able to read all the content. And once you read all the content within your path, we are going to use for each loop. Start with this keyword, and inside this, we are going to use @files. Okay, now let's start by printing out this name of the file within that list one by one. So we use $_ for each file. Then we use double quotes and then slashing so that each file gets printed in one line on our command prompt. Okay. After that, we just end our loop, and now we will open this command prompt and I navigate it to the directory D drive here. And here I'm going to execute my Perl script. So Perl, then sample.pl. Okay. Now if you hit enter, then it should show you the content within your directory. In my case, D drive. Okay, as you can see, it is not discriminating between the files here. It reads txt, html, sas, sps, doc, and other files. Okay, as you can see, it also reads my directories. Okay, you don't see any file extension, that means those are the directories. Okay, you can match this set of list with your content within File Explorer. Okay, and you will find that everything is listed properly. So this was a short video on how to display all the content in a directory or drive using Perl programming language. Hi there. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to connect to MySQL database using Perl programming language. Now make sure that you have Perl installed, and along with Perl, you will have the module necessary for connecting to MySQL database. That module is known as DBI. So we're going to use that in our program. So first thing, I suggest you to create one Perl file, and inside which let's start by calling for our DBI module. Next thing after that is creating our connection object and then call for DBI and let it connect with this method. We are going to call to DBI and then we're going to check for MySQL, and then we will check for the database. Okay, So let me go to my PHP admin. Okay, and my PHP admin will have username of root and password demo1234. Okay, so I'm going to log in, and then I'm going to check the version of MySQL through our Perl code. So basically what we will do is we will simply connect to a database in this program. So now that we have connected, I have this my PHP database to which I want to connect to. So type in my PHP. Okay, then we will go for local host. Okay, now the next thing that I want to do is use comma and then call for root as your username and password, which is demo1234 in my case. In your case, it could be different, so you have to change those things. Next thing, I have this query object that will call my connection. And here I'm going to use prepare statement. Okay. And let's check whether it's okay, all small, prepare statement. And inside this, we are going to make use of select and then space version. Okay, and this will call MySQL version query. Then I'm going to collect the result, call for query, and then execute. Okay, right. Now the next thing is we will call one version object, and from query we are going to fetch the version details. Okay, and then print at the rate version. Okay, then finally we will call for query. That will basically stop the connection. Okay, so what we did so far is we used DBI module and we connected to our server. Then we used our prepare statement, then executed our result. Okay, then we fetched the result, printed specific version. Okay, and finally close the connection. Now let's execute this on our command prompt. Okay, I'm going to use terminal from Visual Studio Code. Okay, now I'm going to use Perl and sample.pl. Okay, after hitting enter, it should show me the version of MySQL running. Okay, and it returns 5.7.15. Let's verify that. And as you can see, MySQL listed here is 5.7.15. Okay, so that's confirmed. And this means our program works properly. And this was simple code to connect to MySQL database. In next few videos, I will show you how to read content from table, how to update, insert, and delete content from table. So this was a short video on how to connect to MySQL database using Perl programming language. Hi there. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can access MySQL table content and display it on your command prompt using Perl programming language. So I have my PHP admin open, and this is my PHP database. And inside this, I have one table named game data. So this game data table contains 6 rows with score of total 6 players. Okay, so I'm going to display that on command prompt. Okay, so open your text editor ID, create one sample Perl file, and we are going to make use of DBI module. So type in use DBI. Next thing, we have to create one connection object. Let's name it my connection. Okay, and then call for, let's say, DBI, and then use connect method. Now here within single quote, call for DBI, then MySQL, then my PHP and its IP, which is localhost, then go for your username and password. Okay, now after you go through this, next thing is we have to prepare one query, and this query will take your connection, which is my connection. Okay, and then you will call for prepare method. Here we are going to select all from game data. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we simply run this query, and then we will collect the result. Okay, and here we have to call query again. Okay, and then we will call for execute. Next is we have to display this data, and for that we make use of while loop. So call while, then my keyword to check the row equals to query, then fetch row. Okay, so what we will do here is we have to check for fetch row array. So fetch row and then underscore array. Okay, so fetch row array, and outside that we have to close our loop here, just like this. Okay, and next thing to do here is we have to print our content from row slash in. Okay, and then we have to simply call for query and then finish. Okay, just save it. Now then open your command prompt. Okay, so let me clear it, and okay, let's just take it to the top, and here I'm going to type in perl sample.perl. I'm in the directory here and executing this code from there because this file is located here. Now after execution, it should show me the content of this is total 6 rows. Okay, so let me hit execute, and as you can see, it shows those 6 rows content on command prompt. Okay, so it managed to read my database and extract the content from the query, select from game data, and using while loop we are printing content on console. Okay, so what we learned is how to connect to MySQL database, how to prepare our query and execute it, and then how to fetch the data and how to display it. So this was a short tutorial on how to read data from MySQL table using Perl programming language. Hi there. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to insert data into your MySQL database table using Perl programming language. So I have this database here, and I have my PHP database with game data table within which I have total 6 rows and I have 3 columns. Okay, so basically it maintains the score of gamers. Okay, so I'm going to access that. So first thing, make sure that you have Perl programming language installed. Also make sure that you have some IDE like Visual Studio Code or any other like Notepad++. Next thing, create one sample.pl file. Now, first thing, we need a module named DBI. So we'll call use DBI. Next thing, we need to create one connection object. So we call for my connection, and this needs to be connected, okay, with your MySQL database. So call for DBI, then MySQL, then you have your MyPHP database, and then localhost. Okay. Also, you need to pass your username and password. So in my case, root, then 1234. Okay. Finally, I'm going to call for my another object. Here, I'm going to execute a query. Okay. So to execute the query, I need my connection object. And then I'm going to call method name do. Okay, now inside this, I'm going to simply use query, insert into, and then game data. And then call for values. And those values are, let's say 7 is the row number and also the column. Then we have our player name, and then we have our score of that person. Okay, and finally we are closing our query. Okay, now next thing, we have to run another query. So we will use query and then call for my connection. Okay, then prepare and then select from game data. Okay, now next thing, we will fetch the result. So we call for result, then query, then execute. Okay, once executed, we need to run a loop. So we will use while loop. Okay, then I'm going to call y is my, and then call for row. Okay, and that row will execute our query, which is going to be fetch row underscore array. Okay, now inside this, I'm going to print my row one at a time. Okay, so row and then slash in. Okay, and finally, we're going to call query and finish our existing open connection. Okay, so this is the simple code that will insert data into our database and add one more row with entries for username and score. Okay, so go to terminal and then derive, and here let me just type in perl sample.pl. After executing this query, it should add our respective data and return us the result. Okay, and here you see that seventh entry is added into our database. So if we refresh it, then it should show us the update. Okay, you can see that seventh entry. So it manages to add that entry into our MySQL database table. So this was a short video on how to insert data into MySQL database table using Perl programming language. Hi there. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to update data from your MySQL database table using Perl programming language. So first thing, let's take a look at this database I have. So I have this my PHP database inside which I have this game data table with total 7 rows, and I want to edit this username Mahesh and change that username into a name, let's say Mac. Okay, so first thing, open IDE or text editor where you can create Perl file. I have created sample.pl, and here I'm going to write my code. So first thing, we need DBI module to interact with our MySQL database server. So let's start by calling use DBI. Okay, next thing, create my connection object that you can use to connect. Okay, and here I'm going to call for my MySQL database, then my PHP database, and instead of IP, I'm going to call for localhost. Okay, then we have our username root. Okay, and password, let's say demo1234. Okay, so in your case, these details could be different. Now let's run a query with our connection. So we use my connection, then call for do. Here within double quotes, type in your update query. So update game data. Here set username equals to. Here I'm going to change to Mac, where ID equals to 7. Okay, then finally simply close this. Then we will call for a query. Okay, so query object, and then call for my connection, and then we prepare a prepare statement. This will select all the rows from our database table named game data. Okay, then we are going to fetch the result. Okay, call for query and then execute this query. Okay, now I'm going to use a while loop. I'm going to check the result from this result. For that, I use keyword my and then call for this row, which is going to basically call for our query. And here we are fetching array using fetch row array. Okay, and inside we are simply printing that row at a time. Okay, then finally we will close our connection with query finish. Okay, now we have saved this. So what we're going to do is open terminal. Okay, and now I'm going to call for Perl sample Perl, and after the execution of this, we should be able to see the change of our username, where we have entry Mahesh changed to Mac. Okay, ID 7, ID 7. Okay, so let's run this. Okay, I have one issue with code here. As you can see, it failed to execute because I didn't properly close it. Now let's run it again. Okay, now here the results are not displayed because I didn't use @row. Okay, and instead use $sign. So we are going to change that again. Okay, so far I made 2 mistakes while writing this code. Okay, and here you have changes made. Okay, you see 7th entry changed to Mac 321. Okay, and here let's refresh this to see the change. Okay, and as you can see, 7th entry is changed to Mac. Okay, so this was a short video on how to update a row within your MySQL database table and update a specific entry within that. In next video, I will show you how to delete a particular row from your database table. Hi there. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can delete the data from MySQL table using Perl programming language. So first thing, here is my PHP my admin. Here you can see my PHP database, and within MySQL, I have this database and it has one table named game data. It has total 7 rows, and out of which I'm going to delete this 7th row from this table. Okay, and for this we are going to write our code. Okay, so let's first open text editor IDE. In my case, I am using Visual Studio Code, and as you can see, I have created one sample.pl file. Now, to work on this project, basically we need a DBI module. So we will use DBI. Next thing is we need one my connection object that will basically use DBI module to connect. Okay, so DBI. Okay, so MySQL, my PHP is my database, and I'm going to use localhost because I don't have specific IP address here. Okay, now the next thing we are going to do is, now you need to also add your username, root, and then password. In my case, demo1234. Okay. And next thing is using my connection and calling for do method that will execute the query. So the query is here that I want to delete from game data where ID of that column is 7. So entire row will be deleted. Okay, just have to mention that. Next thing, we are going to make a query, and from there we are going to simply call our another query, which is going to be with prepare. We're going to select from game data. So basically I'm going to select rest of the rows and going to print out whatever that is left. Okay, so we have our result equals to query. Okay, now here I'm going to execute the above query. Next thing is I'm going to use while loop and call for my and then at the rate row equals to query and fetch row underscore array. Okay, so here I'm going to use at the rate row slash. Okay, and finally I'm going to just close the connection with query and finish. Okay, so what we have done so far is first we connected to the database. Okay, then we executed the delete query on our table so that 7th row gets deleted. Okay, now after that we selected the rest of the rows and executed that command and then printing out our result set and finally closing the connection. Now let's check this on our terminal. Okay, so we will see if we have any issues with our code. So type in Perl, then sample.pl. Okay, and as you can see, we have our 6 rows here. 7th row is now deleted. And as you can see here, if I refresh this, then it will show me the deletion of 7th row. Okay, now the 7th row is deleted. So you get the idea of how to remove a specific row from your MySQL database table using Perl programming language.